15 years ago, on November 14th, 2008, we saw the debut of Batman the Brave and the Bold, one of the best superhero shows ever made. Not only was it an amazing animated series with fantastic action, great characters, and an impeccable art style with fluid animation, it also stands as a love letter to Batman's entire publication history, with a huge reverence and respect to the golden and silver ages of comic books. Throughout its 3 seasons on TV, this show felt like a celebration of all comic books. It unashamedly portrays, with great respect, the campiness, over-the-top, and wildly imaginative nature of comics in a way that very few other comic book TV shows and movies have managed to achieve. And honestly, there's days where I feel like The Brave and the Bold is my favorite TV show of all time, period, which is crazy to me because I love Batman the Animated Series and I normally say that that's my favorite show, but this series is just that good. So today, I wanted to pay my respect to this amazing animated series and celebrate its 15-year anniversary, counting down the 15 best episodes of the show. And of course, as we all know, all lists are subjective, and by best episodes, I really mean my personal favorites. Though I imagine that if you're a fan of the show, most likely, a lot of the episodes that I'm gonna talk about are also some of your favorites. But without further ado, let's start the list. One of the coolest aspects about this series was its focus on obscure DC heroes, and how it went gradually introducing different recurring characters in separate stories, only for them to later tie all of those characters further into the show and developing them together. For example, during most of Season 1 and 2, the show gradually introduced different characters like Blue Beetle, Guy Gardner, Booster Gold, among others, and later on, they actually united these characters and formed the Justice League International, which is a great group that comes from an iconic comic book run by Keith Giffen and J.M. DeMatteis, and that stands as a fan favorite to this day because of how charming this more comedic iteration of the League was. There was a bunch of episodes that focused on the JLI, but my personal favorite one is Season 3's Crisis 22,300 Miles Above Earth, a really fun episode that deals with the JLI throwing a party for the Justice Society, an iconic Golden Age team and my personal favorite superhero team, who were also featured a couple times on the show before appearing on this episode. And this one really highlights all of this show's greatest strengths. The episode is a great tribute to 2 different generations of heroes, and it pays great respect to the Golden Age. The comedy is on point, the action is amazingly animated, and a lot of the fun on the series was watching the different dynamics between superheroes and how they interact with each other, not only between Batman and each guest character, but also between different heroes as well. Booster Gold and both Blue Beetles have great friendships, for example, while Guy Gardner is an asshole to pretty much everyone. And the fun in this episode really does mainly come from seeing how all of these different heroes get along or don't get along. It just has a solid, simple concept of 2 different generations having to hang out and spend time without fully relating at first, but eventually coming to terms and fighting alongside one another. It's truly awesome. Even though the main premise of the show was Batman teaming up with different characters from all corners of the DCU, there actually were some episodes where the main character wasn't Batman. One such episode was Season 2's The Long Arm of the Law, which essentially felt like an episode from a Plastic Man animated series rather than Batman's. And I really love that, since not only is Plastic Man one of my favorite superheroes, he's also a character that's pretty much tailor-made for animation, and I've always felt like he should be used more in cartoons. He did have his own series back in the 1970s, and also during the mid-2000s, he had an amazing animated pilot that was pitched to Cartoon Network as a potential new series, but sadly they rejected the pitch, and it really is one of the saddest animated cancellations ever, because this pilot was fantastic. It was really funny with impeccable comedic timing and great visual gags. It even did the Ren and Stimpy style gross close-ups that some shows do, like SpongeBob. And arguably the best thing about this pilot was that Tom Kenny, the voice of SpongeBob, provided the voice for Plastic Man.
I'm Plastic Man, and you're mean and under arrest.
So it really is a huge shame that Cartoon Network chose to pass on this pilot. I explained all of this backstory because even though this Plastic Man pilot was rejected, it wasn't fully ignored by DC and Warner. since when it was decided that Plastic Man was also going to be a recurring character in The Brave and the Bold, they chose to cast Tom Kenny as Plastic Man once again due to his great performance on the unpicked pilot. And his performance on this show was just as great. He managed to play really well Plastic Man in a very comedic way, while also still being a sympathetic underdog. And this season 2 episode is a great showcase of why his rendition of Plastic Man is so good. The entire episode feels like it comes from a solo Plastic Man cartoon. For example, The Brave and the Bold usually starts with an intro segment of Batman teaming up with a different random hero that doesn't have anything to do with the main story. But in this episode, the intro segment focuses on Plastic Man from the start, and once the intro ends and the episode begins, we're still focusing on Plastic Man. I also loved pretty much all of the gags. I really appreciated Woozy Winks and Baby Plaz's inclusion, which also serves as a nice nod to the 70s series. And it's also cool how this show used Kite Man well before his modern popularity boost. And of course, I'm being pretty subjective here since Plastic Man is one of my favorite characters, but this episode is genuinely one of the show's best, and I'll always wish that we finally get to see a new Plastic Man series. One of the greatest things about The Brave and the Bold is that it gave the chance for DC characters who've never had their own animated show or movie to get the spotlight and showcase their potential in animation. As insane as it may sound, The Flash is one of the biggest DC heroes who's never had his own animated series, which is a shame because the character has a lot of potential in animation. I personally believe he works better animated than in live action, and Season 2's Requiem for a Scarlet Speedster is a great showcase of the Flash's animated potential. It focuses on the disappearance and presumed death of Barry Allen, who alongside Wally West and Jay Garrick were chasing the Reverse Flash until Barry ultimately disappeared out of nowhere, since they reached such high velocity that they entered the Speed Force, and Barry sacrificed himself in order to save Wally and Jay from getting trapped inside the Speed Force, only for them to later find out that Barry actually survived and was imprisoned by Reverse Flash in the future. This is a great homage to The Flash. They reference Barry Allen's death while also simplifying that story and showing the insane, petty hatred that Reverse Flash has for him. They featured the Rogues, and each one of the 3 Flashes has an important role in the story. As I said, I believe that the Flash works best in an animated medium. Imagery like 2 speedsters fighting across the entire world and traveling entire countries with each punch is something that's best adapted in animation, and this episode really shows that. The action was awesome in my opinion. This episode, alongside Flash and Substance from the Justice League cartoon, really proved why the Flash absolutely needs his own animated series, and I really hope we eventually see one in the future. It was insanely difficult to limit myself to only choosing 15 of the best episodes of the show, since pretty much all of its episodes were great overall, and these 2 episodes on our number 12 spot are no exception. And I imagine that a lot of you who've watched the show would have expected to see them higher on the list, but this show just has so many good episodes. The first 2 part of the series focused on Batman fighting against Owlman, an evil version of him who comes from an alternate universe where an evil version of the Justice League called the Injustice Syndicate rules their Earth and who plan on invading the main Earth of our Batman. In part 1, Owlman travels to our show's universe to investigate, and he ends up being captured by Batman. After which, Batman leaves Owlman imprisoned inside the Batcave, and he leaves to Earth 3, where he goes undercover, disguising himself as Owlman, and teams up with a hero version of the Joker as Red Hood in order to stop the Injustice Syndicate's plans. And in part 2, once Batman returns to his original universe, he sees that Owlman had escaped from the Batcave, stole an early Batsuit, and started committing crimes across Gotham using Batman's identity, causing most of his usual allies to start hunting him down, since they have no idea that Batman is being impersonated. And the only person that can tell that this crime spree is being done by an imposter is actually the Joker, and so Batman has no other option than to team up with the Joker.
I want to be partners. Assuming you're you and not that pointy-eared fake in a cape.
This is a huge reason as to why I love these 2 episodes so much. To have Batman teaming up with not only the Joker, but also a heroic version of him who instead of becoming the Joker used the Red Hood identity as a superhero is so goddamn amazing. It's inspired even, and it's a great example of why The Brave and the Bold is such a high quality show that allows for storylines that wouldn't be possible in any other normal Batman show. They wouldn't have done an episode like this in, say, the animated series. In the DCAU, Batman got to meet an evil doppelganger only by the time he was on Justice League. The Brave and the Bold, however, is an entirely different beast, and it's a show that is more than comfortable with doing crazy and creative ideas, like forcing Batman to team up with the Joker. Owlman impersonated Batman by using his first appearance purple glove suit and a showcase of cameos from different alternate Batmans, paying homage to the character's long history. It's an amazing episode, and ever since I've seen it, I've dreamt about DC making a comic book focusing on this hero version of Red Hood Joker and the League of Superhero versions of regular villains. We've seen them do solo books about the crime syndicate in the past, but to see more stories from this hero Red Hood Joker would be insane. Hell, I'd even write it for DC if they let me. They just gotta hit me up. Please, I'll do it for free. So, Brave and the Bold was a show with a great sense of humor. It's remembered for being very comedic, larger than life, and campy. However, the show did have its more dramatic and serious episodes. It honestly could get pretty dark in some instances. One of its most emotionally effective episodes was The Last Patrol, an episode that focuses on the separation and reunion of the Doom Patrol, which in this universe were a superhero group that was very popular with young people, but they are currently separated by the time the episode starts, and the members of the team are forced to reunite once their old rogues galleries start targeting them and attempting to kill the retired heroes. A big reason why this episode works so well as one of the most serious from the entire show is that Doom Patrol stories, besides being pretty bizarre, also have a sense of tragedy to them. Their heroes always suffer from alienation, isolation, and depression. Hell, Robot Man is pretty much suicidal, and this episode actually shows that. When the villain Arsenal shows up to assassinate Robot Man, he really doesn't care. He stands up to the villain and actually tells him to take the shot and kill him, since Robot Man hates his life and really does want to die. And I find it cool that this show wasn't afraid to adapt these darker themes from the comics. Not only that, but at the end of the episode, Doom Patrol actually dies after saving an island from being destroyed by the villain General Zol. And this is actually an adaptation of a storyline from the original Doom Patrol run from the Silver Age, and the episode actually has multiple other references to the Doom Patrol's past, like referencing classic comic book covers, and featuring cameos of Beast Boy and Flex Mentallo. This is just a really solid dramatic episode, and personally, my favorite animated adaptation of the Doom Patrol to this day.
Batmite presents Batman's Strangest Cases!
Even though I always enjoy when action cartoons do more serious or dramatic episodes, that isn't really something unique. Pretty much all action cartoons have some episodes that were darker or heavier than usual. I just say this to know that doing a serious episode isn't really something wholly unique to The Brave and the Bold. However, there are some episodes from this show that absolutely only could have been done in this series. For example, Season 2's Batman's Strangest Cases is a really fun and unique episode idea that only could be done on this series. It's an anthology special that adapts some of the most obscure alternate versions of Batman's history, specifically the mad parody Batboy, the Batmanga incarnation of him, and ultimately a really cool crossover between the 70s animated Batman and Robin with Scooby-Doo and the Mystery Gang. This crossover in particular is really cool because it actually already happened in the past, in the old Hanna-Barbera cartoon, The New Scooby-Doo Movies in 1972, so Scooby-Doo and Batman have a lot of history together. Later on, after The Brave and the Bold had actually ended, in 2018, there was a direct-to-video animated movie revival of The Brave and the Bold teaming up with Scooby-Doo once again, and it was actually a very good movie, well worth checking out if you're a fan of the show. Batman's Strangest Cases were all really entertaining shorts. They all have distinct, visually engaging, and vibrant art styles. The comedy is great, and all of the shorts are presented by Batmite, who acts as a sort of host for the episode. And most importantly, this episode features Lord Deathman, who, as we all know, is the greatest Batman villain of all time. Despite this show mostly focusing on the more obscure heroes from DC, it was also awesome when they featured the more iconic ones. It really felt like they put in an extra amount of care whenever they made episodes about popular heroes, and Battle of the Superheroes really showcased this. It's kinda crazy that they chose to wait until the third and final season until they finally made an episode featuring Superman, but it was really worth the wait, honestly. This episode serves as a great tribute to Superman's Silver Age history, which is honestly the character's craziest period. It has many references to classic stories and comic book covers from that time period. In 22 minutes, they managed to feature pretty much all of Superman's cast, from Perry White, Lois Lane, and Jimmy Olsen, to Metallo, Toyman, Mr. Mxyzptlk, even Crypto showed up, and I liked that they found a way to make Superman act out of character and fight against Batman in a way that makes sense within the logic of the show. If another series tried to use red kryptonite as an excuse, it could end up feeling kinda campy, but in this show, it feels just right. And it allowed for an awesome Dark Knight Returns style fight at the end. It's just a really fun episode that does a great job in paying homage to Superman and the Silver Age. Man, the two-parters in this show were honestly fantastic. In Season 1, the episodes that dealt with Owlman and Batman teaming up with the Joker were some of the best episodes of its season. But given that there were just barely 6 episodes into the show, that two-parter didn't have that much build-up prior to it happening. But during Season 2, the show's writers made multiple teases throughout the season hinting that an alien supervillain was slowly invading planet Earth. An alien that was revealed to be Starro the Conqueror, acting alongside his herald, the Faceless Hunter, who secretly started targeting and taking out Earth's heroes by infecting them with Starro and subjecting them to his mind control. They hinted at the storyline in various intro segments from different episodes before ultimately culminating in the Siege of Starro two-parter. These were some great episodes because they highlight the importance of obscure and underrated heroes. This entire show is a celebration of the less popular characters from DC Comics, and in this two-parter, the only heroes that managed to evade getting infected by Starro were characters like Booster Gold, Blue Beetle, and Shazam, characters that the show purposefully introduced and developed before introducing them on this episode to showcase how even lesser-known heroes are able to come together and save the entire world, serving as an origin for this show's Justice League International, and just serving as a couple of amazing episodes in general. The action is great, the storyline is engaging, and just like The Last Patrol, these episodes were both bombastic and over the top, while also being very dramatic and serious at the end, since it's another episode that actually ends with the death of one of its characters. I think it's clear that one of the most defining aspects of this series is its reverence and adoration for the Silver Age of comics. It harkens back to a simpler time in superhero comics where they had no problem with executing wild, over-the-top, and outlandish ideas and concepts. Even though they were undeniably campy, a lot of Silver Age stories were also really imaginative and iconic. One such story that was actually adapted on The Brave and the Bold was Batman, the Superman of Planet X, which originates from Batman issue 113, published on February of 1958, and it told a story about Batman meeting an alien being who also became Batman on his home planet. Batman gets transported to the planet Sur-En-Arr by the native Batman of that planet in order to help him fight against some giant robots, and our Batman discovers that on Sur-En-Arr, normal human beings actually develop Superman-like powers. This episode is a fantastic adaptation that perfectly captures the appeal and imagination of this Silver Age concept. It's an idea that only could have been done during that era of comic books, and its adaptation is an episode of TV that only could have been done on The Brave and the Bold. It's a huge reason why this show is so good. It didn't restrain itself, nor did it put any arbitrary limitations, and they allowed themselves to adapt a wide range of stories, from more dramatic ones to more imaginative and campy ones like this episode. It's also a great tribute to the DCAU, since Kevin Conroy voices the Batman of Sur-En-Arr, and seeing Dietrich Bader, who plays the Batman of this show, interact with the most iconic Batman voice actor ever is just amazing.
I'm Batman of Earth. I've been stranded here.
Then welcome to the planet Sur-En-Arr. Here,
I'm Batman.
And other DCAU actors also played characters, like Clancy Brown playing the Lex Luthor analog Rothul. It's all just really fun. This Batman was one of the biggest reasons why The Brave and the Bold worked so well, and Diedrich Bader's serious and stoic performance contrasted with the over-the-top and campy Silver Age-like adventures in a really entertaining way. It was really funny how the show's world was so colorful and lively, with most heroes having exaggerated personalities, while Batman was always the straight, serious, no-nonsense, near-perfect superhero that nearly all other superheroes idolize, goes beyond being simply a street-level hero, and they managed to show all sides to the character. This is a Batman that feels just as right when he's fighting against mobsters like when he's fighting against aliens and demons. This is a Batman that has a solution to every problem. Every insane gadget is within his utility belt. They truly made him feel like the greatest hero of his universe. And much like how Batman's greatness was exaggerated and heightened in this show, so did the Joker's, because he also truly felt like a clown prince of crime. He's the quintessential, gimmicky Silver Age villain that always has an elaborate, high-concept plan for his crimes. He has gadgets and technology just like Batman. Hell, he even has a Joker mobile. He was portrayed as a classic comic book villain that embraced his campiness, and his Dick Sprang-inspired look was also great. And I honestly can't believe that he even had his very own episode on season 3 of the show. They actually changed the show's intro for the episode to make it even more special. It directly opened up with an intro segment focusing on Joker, and the main episode continued with him teaming up with different villains in order to help them with their crimes, much like Batman does, but with heroes, with Joker teaming up with a forgotten Golden Age hero called the Weeper, in order to help him return to villainy and be respected again. And I find it really funny how the Joker shows up to help all kinds of villains in all kinds of contexts, just like Batman is shown working with all types of heroes. It's kinda ridiculous to see the Joker in the future fighting against Kamandi, or in Atlantis causing trouble. This is just one of the most fun and unique episodes of the entire show. Something that I've always thought is that it's kinda sad how little importance DC seems to give to the Trinity. Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman are 3 of the most iconic superheroes ever, and they're DC's most important heroes, and yet the pairing of just Batman and Superman always seems to outshine the importance of the Trinity. For example, when Dawn of Justice came out, Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman all appeared on the movie. However, only Batman and Superman were used for the title. Even in the comics, there's been multiple Batman/Superman and World's Finest comic book runs, but to my knowledge, there's only been one comic book run about the Trinity. So when I originally saw the episode, Triumvirate of Terror, I instantly loved it. The concept of having the arch nemesis of each different superhero switch enemies and exploit their weaknesses and unique matchups is just fantastic, and I just really appreciate the fact that they even made a Trinity episode in the first place. It has many comic book Easter eggs, and it's awesome to see all 3 heroes fighting together and also hanging out and just bonding with each other like friends. It's a great episode, and the intro segment is also fantastic. It's beautiful, and a deep cut like that really does show the love that this show's writers had for the Silver Age and just comic books in general. So, even though I personally loved this show's unashamed adoration and respect for the Silver Age, and it fully took advantage of how wildly imaginative it was, there were a lot of other people who admittedly didn't like this. A large part of Batman fans didn't want to see a campy, adventurous show. Most people, when they imagine a Batman show, they expect something more dark and serious like Batman the Animated Series, for example. That series was so good that it set a high precedent for future Batman shows and what people expect a Batman series to be. The Brave and the Bold obviously subverted expectations and deviated from the usual dark Batman take. But there was one episode that felt like a more traditional Batman story and was also one of the best episodes from the entire show. Chill of the Night deals with Batman investigating the murder of his parents and hunting down Joe Chill, the man who killed them, and the entire reason why he became Batman. And it's simply fantastic. It maintains a dark and serious tone throughout the entire runtime, without shying away from showing how much psychological suffering Batman is going through, and the heaviness of the subject matter. Diedrich Bader gives an amazingly emotional performance, showing the impotence that Batman feels when speaking about how his parents were gunned down. The confrontation he has with Joe Chill is genuinely dramatic and emotionally effective.
I know because I watched it happen. I know because I am the son of the man you murdered. I am Bruce Wayne.
Adam West guest stars as Thomas Wayne, and it's amazing. This episode is so good that if it would have came out as an episode of the animated series, it also would have been considered one of the best episodes of that amazing show as well. But another great thing that kinda only could have been done in The Brave and the Bold is how the Spectre and the Phantom Stranger also appeared in the episode as overseeing entities throughout the story. So even in a more traditional dark Batman story, they still also managed to include some more fantastical comic book elements into the episode, just like the rest of the show. It managed to go dark without losing the Brave and the Bold's charm and identity. It's simply fantastic, and a lot of people's favorite episode of the entire show. It's just that good. As we've previously discussed, even though The Brave and the Bold is mostly fondly remembered and beloved nowadays, when it originally premiered, there were a lot of Batman fans that did not appreciate a lighter take on Batman. If you went online around that time and participated on discussions about the show, then you know that the series was pretty polarizing at first, simply because it didn't fit with the common dark and serious portrayal of Batman that mainstream audiences have grown to expect. As mentioned previously, The Brave and the Bold premiered in 2008, the same year that The Dark Knight came out, so it's understandable if a lot of people were kinda shocked to see a show like this premiering at the same time. But that's why The Brave and the Bold isn't a show made for the general common fan. It's a show that would be most enjoyed and appreciated by die-hard Batman and comic book fans who know, understand, and respect all eras of the character. This is the topic that the episode Legends of the Dark Knight directly addresses. By focusing on Batman being annoyed by Batmite, it uses the fifth dimensional imp and his fourth wall breaking abilities to respond to people who didn't like nor understood the show in a funny and well thought out way. And it emphasizes how Batman is a character with such an extensive and deep history that he has room for multiple interpretations that are all valid. This series proves that Batman is much more than a brooding, tortured detective, and this episode is all about discussing that, all with great references, cameos, and fantastic animation. The very last episode of the show, called Mightfall, also deals with the same topic in a way, and even though it's also a great episode and a fantastic final episode for any show to have, I still personally prefer this one over Mightfall simply because it's a more focused concept and response to the people who unfairly criticized the show without understanding what it was trying to accomplish. Now, continuing with another Batmite episode, this is actually my favorite Batmite episode, my favorite Joker episode, and overall my second favorite episode of the show. Emperor Joker is based on the 2000 storyline published in Superman in Action Comics, which deals with the Joker gaining the fifth dimensional powers of Mr. Mxyzptlk and all the reality warping chaos that he causes because of it. It's a really entertaining storyline that I can only imagine a show like The Brave and the Bold even attempting to do. This is why I love this show so much. It didn't put any limits onto itself, and it allowed full creativity and imagination to its writers when considering potential stories to tell in the show. In this episode, instead of getting his powers from Mxyzptlk, he gets them from Batmite. And even though Superman doesn't appear, we get to see the Joker play with Batman for the entire episode. In the comic, Joker does some gnarly stuff, like turning every person on China into food and eating them. We didn't get to see that on the cartoon, of course, but they did actually adapt the Joker torturing and killing Batman only to revive him and keep killing him over and over again hundreds of times, which was a really dark aspect of the comic that I'm surprised that they showed in the episode. We also got to see the debut of Harley Quinn, a Jason Todd callback, a Saint Joker at the end of the episode, and gorgeous animation as usual. This is just such a fun, high-concept episode that fully takes advantage of the show's sensibilities, and it tells a story that perfectly fits with the series style. It's, in my opinion, one of the best direct adaptations of a specific comic storyline in any DC TV show, and I highly suggest you check it out. So even though this video is already really long, there's still some episodes that I also want to talk about, but that barely didn't make it onto the list. Powerless, for example, is so goddamn funny. It's the best comedy episode of the entire series. Captain Atom being a jackass and undermining Batman just because he doesn't have any powers is just hilarious.
Boom, you're dead. Boom, you're dead again. Boom, boom, boom.
Shadow of the Bat is the one where Batman gets turned into a vampire and he slowly starts infecting the Justice League International. It's a really fun episode, and it's awesome that even though Batman the Animated Series got its vampire episode cancelled, we still got to see a vampire Batman eventually on another cartoon. Time Out of Vengeance was a cool, abridged adaptation of the return of Bruce Wayne, and I really liked it. And I know that I probably disappointed some people because I didn't include neither the Music Meister episode nor the Birds of Prey episode, which were both very good and are also the musical episodes of the show. But honestly, I don't usually like musical episodes all that much, not gonna lie. I do like some musicals, don't get me wrong, but whenever a TV show does a special musical episode, it's just sort of, The Birds of Prey song though, filled with dirty innuendos, was awesome. That's undeniable. The Brave and the Bold is a show with a lot of reverence for history and legacy, the history of Batman and DC from its very beginning, through all its different and distinct ages, all the way to its potential future. And this episode deals with the Batman legacy narrated from Alfred's perspective, showing how Batman retired from crime fighting after his final battle with the Joker, married and settled down with Selina Kyle. And I love how this episode incorporated different aspects from Batman's history to tell a unique potential future for him. This episode is sort of modeled after Batman's future in the Golden Age Earth 2 comics, where he also retires and marries Selina Kyle. And in those comics, they eventually had a daughter named Helena Wayne. And in this episode, they also have a kid, except they have a son named Damian Wayne. And they also adapted elements from Grant Morrison's era of Batman comics, an entirely different era of the character's history, namely adapting how the new dynamic duo is Dick Grayson as Batman and Damian Wayne as Robin, something that Morrison did in the comics to shake things up, and it was awesome seeing the traditional dynamic duo relationship inverted. Usually Batman is the serious one and Robin's the lighter and more upbeat hero, but when this happened in the comics, a lot of people praised Morrison for subverting expectations with their new dynamic duo, with Damian Wayne as Robin being the dark and serious one, and Dick Grayson as Batman actually being less serious and cracking jokes. It was a really fresh idea that was greatly executed in the comics, and they actually loosely adapted it in this episode. The show has a lot of respect for Morrison's work, and we even got to see cameos of some of his villains like Professor Pig. This is a fantastic episode from a fantastic show, but I personally believe it's the very best one because it showcases all of the series' greatest strengths. It is imaginative, creative, and has an over-the-top high-concept comic book storyline, but yet it's also serious when it has to be. It's dark at times, and it still deals with heavy subject matter such as death. It has a great appreciation for Batman's past, while also respecting that the character is multifaceted, and his legacy will continue to have infinite different interpretations in the future. Batman as a symbol and as a character is meant to be reinterpreted and reimagined, while staying true to the character's spirit. This is what happens when network executives give creative freedom of a franchise to people who truly love and respect that franchise. When you watch this episode, you can just immediately feel that the writers and producers involved with The Brave and the Bold clearly have a lot of love for Batman. So that was it. Those are, in my opinion, the 15 best episodes from Batman the Brave and the Bold. But of course, this list is completely subjective and it's only my list. This was purely and solely my opinion on the matter. And even though I'm sure I talked about a lot of episodes that you guys also love, probably also didn't talk about many other great episodes which might have been somebody's favorite. So I want to know, what are your favorite episodes from The Brave and the Bold? What do you think about the show in general? Would you like to see a revival of some kind? Maybe a new animated movie set in the show's world, for example? Please share your thoughts in the comments below, and as always, thank you so much for watching.